I had always imagined that if betrayal ever entered my life, it would be something I'd sense. A subtle shift, a strange intuition, a moment when the person you love starts becoming someone you no longer recognize. But when I walked into my bedroom that Friday afternoon, returning early from my business trip with a bouquet of lilies and a small box holding the sapphire necklace Rachel had admired last month, I never anticipated the image that would be burned into my memory forever. My wife, completely naked, moaning between two men, one of whom was Brandon, our gym trainer, the guy who always smiled at me with respect and even gave me tips on back posture, and the other, to my disbelief, was Derek, my cousin, my childhood brother-in-arms, the man I had defended against bullies, lent money to during his divorce, and invited into our home more times than I could count, and in that instant, my heart didn't just break, it shattered in quiet, cold shock that wrapped itself around me. Like a cloak of numb disbelief, and instead of screaming or throwing the lilies at them, I quietly closed the door, walked downstairs, and sat on the couch with my hands clasped, staring at the bouquet like it belonged to a stranger, my mind spinning not from anger but calculation, because this wasn't sudden, not really. This betrayal had been dripping like poison into my life for months, and I had chosen to ignore the symptoms. The long, girls' nights that ended with her phone turned off, the new lingerie sets I never saw her wear, the random gym sessions that lasted 3 hours, the faint cologne I didn't wear but found on our sheets, the way she started locking her phone with a new password, how her laughter changed whenever she was texting someone, and how she barely looked up from her screen even when I made her favorite meals, and when she forgot our anniversary claiming a work crisis, but tagged a location at a beach bar with friends I knew weren't in town. Something inside me clicked, and I decided to stop being the fool and start being the observer. And that's when I started documenting, not stalking or accusing, just watching quietly, systematically, like a man preparing for war. And I bought discreet, high-quality mini cameras which I installed behind the bookshelf, the air vent, and one above the wardrobe with a clear view of our bed, all motion-triggered, all back to cloud storage she didn't know existed. And over the next 4 weeks I witnessed 5 different men entering our home during the hours I was working late. 4 of them strangers and one clearly Brandon, who always acted like he respected our marriage but had no problem being the serpent in the garden. And on the 5th week, the footage broke something in me. It wasn't the sex, though, that stung, it was the laughter after, the way she and Brandon laughed at how easy it was to manipulate me, calling me soft and too trusting, mocking how I probably think she's baking when she's moaning under someone else. And that's when I realized I wasn't in a marriage, I was in a performance I didn't know was a joke to her. So I did what I do best. I strategized, I planned, and I waited, and when my company sent me to a leadership seminar in Chicago, I told her I'd be gone for 5 days. But I came back on day 3, flight rescheduled without her knowledge, and I walked in quietly, already suspecting what I'd find. But nothing prepared me for seeing her not just with one man, but 2, my wife with my cousin, and our gym trainer, laughing, moaning, sinning without shame in the very bed we once shared dreams in. And still I didn't scream, didn't interrupt. I just stood long enough for them to see me when they finished, panic blooming in their guilty eyes as I walked in slowly and placed the bouquet gently on the dresser, then reached into my coat pocket and laid a manila envelope on the bed with one calm sentence: "You should read this." And then turned to Rachel and added, "You might recognize the voices on the recordings," and left the room while they scrambled for clothes, their world collapsing behind me as my calm voice carried more power than any scream ever could. Because inside that envelope were the divorce papers, yes, but also screenshots of messages, voice memos she didn't know I had recovered from her deleted chats, and hard copies of the transcriptions of the videos, all prepared, all notarized, all time-stamped. And as I sat in the kitchen, sipping a glass of scotch, Rachel came down in tears, a robe loosely tied, stammering apologies, blaming stress, childhood trauma, claiming it meant nothing. But I simply asked, "Did Derek mean nothing too?" And watched the blood drain from her face, because betrayal by a stranger is one thing, but when your family joins the betrayal, it hits another level. And when she said she'd do anything to fix it, I reminded her that trust doesn't come in glue sticks, and told her the locks would be changed within the hour. The joint accounts had already been frozen, and her car, technically under my name, had been collected that morning by the dealership per the termination agreement I signed yesterday. And then I told her to pack a small bag, because the lease was under my name and I'd filed a formal eviction notice through my lawyer, effective immediately. And she tried to sob her way through a monologue about love, but I stopped her by showing the photo of her and Brandon on the beach. Last month, same date, she told me she was with her mother in the hospital, and that's when she collapsed onto the floor, realizing I hadn't just found out today. I had known for a while, and the silence she thought was ignorance was really strategy. And as for Derek, he was about to lose more than a cousin. His wife received an anonymous package that same day, with screenshots of his visits to our home, and she called me to thank me for the truth, saying she'd file her own divorce soon. And Brandon? Well, his manager at the gym received a copy of the footage, and he was fired for violating ethics rules within 24 hours, and Rachel's Bakery, the one I had invested nearly $40,000 into over the past year, was shut down within a week after I contacted the landlord and presented proof of her breach of our agreement regarding moral clauses in business conduct. And the investors, learning of her multiple affairs, especially one with a client, dropped her without a second thought, and I donated her baking equipment to a local culinary school under her name. Irony tastes better served cold. And as she faded into the shadows of her own mistakes, I took that vacation alone, the one I had planned for us, sat on a beach chair in Costa Rica with a novel in my hand and peace in my chest, until I met a woman named Ella, a solo traveler from Spain with eyes like sunlight through amber, and as we shared coffee and stories, I realized I wasn't broken. I was just finally free, and the version of me that once ignored the signs was gone forever, replaced by a man who knew his worth, who knew that sometimes the best revenge isn't rage or chaos, it's quiet power, walking away when they expect you to fall apart. And as I returned home weeks later to an empty, clean apartment, I smiled, not because I had lost a wife, but because I had shed a weight I mistook for love, and in that silence, I heard something beautiful for the first time in years: peace.